Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Hunter Base Podcast. What do Mavericks hunters do when they're not hunting Mavericks? They go back to the base, recharge, and shoot the shit. I'm your host with the most, Zeromaster, and joining me again is my regular co-host, Mr. Up Here.
Heyo.
So, I guess to start, we should just start with, what have you been up to? Because a lot has happened.
Yeah.
Do you want to go ahead and start?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm going to ask your opinion and then I'll go from there. Number one, should I go with the most significant thing that's happened in my life or the least significant and work my way up?
Go from whatever order you want, man. I'm not.
Oh, okay, thanks. I really appreciate that directing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You can do whatever you want. It's like, oh, okay, thanks.
I love when somebody's like asks you and they're like, what should I do? And I'm like, whatever you want, man.
It's like, well, if I had a want, you're like, I should commit horrible war crimes, and just runs off. And you're like, no, none of that. No, stop that. No. So in order of things that have happened chronologically, right before the last episode, I believe that you and I did. I had just gone to Barcelona for the honeymoon, so I'd done that.
Oh, Barcelona.
Yeah, Barcelona, because they don't say C's, they say TH, so it sounds like they have a lisp. I have a whole thing about that. It's super weird.
They sound like Mike Tyson?
So I genuinely believe that a long time ago they had a king or something that had a lisp and he cut a bunch of people's head off. They didn't equally have the lisp. So Catalonian Spanish just has it's not Barcelona, it's Barcelona.
Gotcha.
It's just so funny.
So just think about Mike Tyson saying it. We're going to Barcelona.
Hey man, we're going to Barcelona over there. No, so that was beautiful. It was a great time. We get back. My wife has her 31st birthday. And I didn't really get to do anything with her for her 30th because we just had too much to do. So I'm like, you know what? I want to go all out for her 30th birthday. I'm going to take her to Disney World. So I did.
Oh, shit. You guys went to Disney World?
I went to Disney. Look, I know people have opinions about the megalo corporation that is Disney. Disney World, if you just go trying to have a good time, it is fun. It is just turn your brain off, just be in the moment, fun.
Just remember, if you've ever signed up for Disney Plus or bought tickets online to go to Disney, you've waived your ability to sue Disney.
Yeah. And it's so funny. It's because they've backpedaled on that so hard that they're like letting Deadpool at Disney Land make fun of it because, all of those scripts have to be approved. It's a whole thing. So we go to Disney World. We spend 5 nights, 4 days there at the park. We go and do stuff. It's a fantastic time. Wife gets motion sick, so that kind of threw a lot of stuff off. But it's a fantastic time. I'm pro Disney adult. I'm not pro go there and be weird. I'm pro go there as an adult to Disney and enjoy yourself because it is good food. It is fun. Enjoy the time.
Yeah.
Spend the money. Trying to be cheap at Disney is stupid. Don't go there if you're not willing to just be in it because if you're trying to pinch pennies, it's not a good time. It's
something that Disney's something you save up for, or even every theme parks like that.
Like go and do it. Like don't go in there and be like, okay, I've snuck in these goldfish, and now it's like, why? Why would you spend the money to come all the way out here and not try to just enjoy it? Like that's more stress.
The other part you got to be careful about though is there's some stuff that you should be allowed to bring with you. Like for example, you should be allowed to bring water, and there should be water refill places.
Okay, so there are water. And keep in mind, Disney has changed it to where all water in the park is free.
Okay, well,
you can buy a bottle of water, and they've discounted it to $2 a bottle, which is way better than the $8 it used to be.
Okay,
but you can just go anywhere and you can just go into any location and be like, I would like a cup of water, and it's completely free. The only downside is that it's tap water, and it is tap water from Florida, which is sulfur water. So just be ready for that. But if you bring in a filter straw with you, which is a whopping $8, it tastes normal. So there you go.
Listen, I've never had the water in the area, but there's an area in the GTA that you just smell sulfur, and I'm pretty sure it's probably in the water there too.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's just not a good time. It's okay. It's clean. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just because it's sulfur based water. It just has
all the better reason to get a filtering water bottle.
Yep, absolutely. And those are allowed. As long as it's not huge and made of glass, you're fine. So they have changed a lot. There is a lot. Now, there is still really fucking expensive, overpriced shit, but that's just part of it. But again, not to harp on that. I'm just saying, we had a great time. If you've never been, save up, really do it. Stay at the resort, have the whole fun. It's worth it. Number 2, I bought a new car.
Oh my God.
Should I have? Yeah. So I drove a little small car. I got an SUV. I know that's going to sound awful, but I got like a more so eco-friendly one because I bought a Honda.
Bro, I drive an
There you
SUV,
go.
but
Yeah,
it was free.
I know that some people have, So some people have opinions. I'm not driving a gas guzzling giant like a Escalade or something. I bought a Honda Passport. Okay, it's just nicer than anything I've ever owned. But we bought a car.
Like, do I wish my Toyota RAV4 was better on gas? Yeah, sure, but I mean, it was free. I can't complain. I actually just got repairs done on it that that I didn't pay for. My dad paid for, so I guess that's my Christmas present this year. Because my SUV needed it needed a wheel bearing replaced, and the tank or the pipe, one of them for my antifreeze, was destroyed. And you can't just put a used part in there. You got to put like a whole thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it was $850 later. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. I do. Yeah. So with that specifically, I got this car. It's nice. Been using it. I've already put 600 miles on it in fucking Foreverland because I have to commute so far to work. A lot of people know that feeling.
Only 600?
600 miles on it in less than a month.
I mean,
that's the thing. It's like I drive 40 something miles one way to work. So that's back and forth every day times 5.
I don't know how much how long the distance is, but I have to drive like at least an hour there and back every day for my commute.
I feel that. Yeah, it's about a 47-minute drive one way for me, so I feel that. On that specifically, so all of this surmounting to the big event that is I am going to be a dad. We found out very recently, but this is a thing. My wife is now just over 9 weeks in. And that's the main reason we bought the car, is because my old car was a compact. It was basically an aluminum can with a lawnmower engine. And if anything had hit that, everyone inside is no longer going to exist. So we got something a little safer and bigger. But yeah, so I'm going to be a dad, which is a big thing because nobody was expecting that. It was not a planned event.
Well, first off, congratulations. You're going to be a dad.
Thank you. It's going to be a weird experience.
I have nothing but confidence in you because you are a very responsible guy, and you've changed a lot for the better since I first known you. So,
thank you. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Now I know. I guess we'll do a lot of interviews for the first few months after, because you're not going to get a lot of sleep. So
yeah, oof.
Enjoy sleep while you can. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I don't even sleep that much anyway, so this is going to be a real interesting event.
Yeah. So
it's a lot of me existing.
The second thing, if she's 9 weeks in, that means you're 10% of the way.
Yeah, because 9 months is the typical. So we're just over. Yeah, so we're chugging along there. We're just about to. I think 13 weeks is the end of the first trimester. 3. So we'll see how this goes. But yeah, that's a big thing. So that's the major events in my life all happening in like quick succession.
Okay.
So it'd be nice. I don't know. Did I talk to you since I got the promotion too? That was the thing.
I can't remember if you said you did or not. I think you did.
Yeah,
actually,
I got promoted twice in 1 year, which was a big deal.
Twice, damn.
So yeah. So I'm not going to go into detail because I don't need people like doxing my job.
Exactly.
But I got promoted. I'm assistant branch manager for a local credit union now, which is super cool. So that was nice. I went from hourly to salary, which is nice.
Oh man, that's the best. I'm hoping I can get salary at my current job.
The benefits were the thing for me because typically like child birthing is super expensive, and now it will be considerably less expensive, which is a plus. So now that's more money that my wife can spend on baby stuff and not just on baby.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like, one of the main reasons I want to get salary is because, 1, job security, and 2, benefits. Because, I know we have free healthcare here in Canada, but not everything's covered. It doesn't, the OHIP, for example, that's the Ontario coverage, does not cover mental, dental, eyes, stuff like that, chiropractic, none of that stuff is covered. So if you need to go to the hospital or you need to book an appointment with the doctor, you're not going to get a bill, but the other ways you will be charged, like if you take an ambulance or
Yeah.
certain medications are not free. Though anytime I've gone to the emergency room, they've never charged me for stuff in the IV. I'll say that. So
That's nice.
that stuff is free. But when my dad got his knee replaced, for example, he had to pay for his crutches and stuff like that. But his work had benefits, so he got them for free. So, but yeah, no. So it would be nice because I haven't gone to my dentist in a few years. So I'd like to have my teeth looked at. I know I need new glasses because mine are just. I've been skirting around with them. They're getting pretty scratched up. So, yeah. So I totally feel that. So hoping soon. I've got 6 months left on my contract, so hopefully they'll offer me something soon because I know they need people. So, but is there anything
I'm
else?
hoping. I want to say that's it. I can't think of anything else. Don't quote me. It could change. But other than that, that should be it.
Yeah. Basically, I guess the biggest update for people on my end is that now that summer is over, most of my stuff that I had planned is done. My basically the big things that happened this summer is my roommate's girlfriend was down from the UK for a few weeks. The day she went back, my brother came for a few weeks, and he lives on the other side of Canada. And around that time, my grandfather passed away. So there was that we were dealing with. But there's that. And then while my brother was visiting, we went to a bunch of concerts. I went and saw Sammy Hagar with
that'd be a good
Loverboy.
That's awesome.
We were calling it Van Hagar because it was the lineup of Van Halen minus Van Halen. Instead, it was Joe Satriani, which is, in my opinion, he's the better guitar player. But if you're gonna replace Van Halen, it better be somebody good. So, and Joe Satriani's top tier. So that was good. We also saw Billy Talent. I don't know how big they were in the States, but over here they were huge when I was growing up. So really cool to see them as well. And then I saw Metric a couple weeks before that, but that was a free show. So
nice.
Yeah, so it was a lot of people there. Other than that, now that we're transitioning into fall, this month I've been working on a secret project that will be revealed in October because it has to be done by October. It's kind of a 1 month thing. So keep an eye on the channel for that, guys, because we will probably need your support. Not monetarily, but with the likes and the shares and all that stuff. But it is so we're recording this on the 15th and streaming it on the 15th. So that means in 15 days we got to have this thing done. So you guys will see it soon. Sorry, go ahead.
Lot of moving parts there.
Yeah. And I do have ideas for my Halloween video figured out now, but I can't start working on it until this other project's done. So that's kind of what's going in there. Also, next week I'm gonna be on vacation, so I'm glad I got my car fixed because I'm driving to the States, somewhere in Ohio. I'm not gonna say exactly where, but yeah, I'll be in Ohio for a wedding and stuff. So and then I'll be back to regular streaming hopefully the week after. So we'll see. But this is kind of why I wanted to do this now because this gives another stream because I'm only going to be able to stream once next week and then we'll be done. I've actually canceled my Monday streams for this whole month to focus on that project. So I have extra time to work on it, but it's fine. I've got a lot of stuff in the back burner going up, so it should be good. Also, hi Florgy, good to see you.
Hello.
So that's basically what's going on with us. Do we want to just hop in to the to this topic, to our stuff? Do we want to talk? I kind of want to start with the hot one, the hot button topic.
Yeah, go for it.
And that would be the PS5 Pro. So I watched this on stream. I talked about this on stream, but I also want to get the perspective from somebody else who's also a gamer, also has a gaming setup that you just showed me.
Yeah.
So I think the main thing that people get is that the main thing people are talking about is the price, that it's 700 US. So
Mhm.
before we go into that, let's
Ouch.
just break this down. So I know sales tax is based on states. In Canada, it's pretty much 13% across the board, unless you live in like Alberta or Montreal. So after doing the conversion of the cost, before taxes, the PS5 Pro is $950 Canadian.
Ugh.
And after taxes, it's going to be almost 1100 Canadian. This is without a disk drive. So, yeah. And then the other thing that sucks is I'm pretty sure it's 700 it's 699 American, but also 699 Great British pounds, which makes no sense to me. Like, why is it the same number? Because Great Pounds are, I don't know if one's worth more than the other, so it should be lower, but no, it's going to cost even more if you buy it in the UK. So it's ridiculous.
I
Now,
love this.
and the thing is, it's $300 more than the standard PS5. And my thought is, for not that much more, you're getting a better GPU, I guess. They're using upscaling, but it's AI based. When they could have put a line doubler in there, and that would have been better. But I don't know. What do you think? Give me your initial thoughts here.
So here's my thing. It's like we all knew that a pro was going to happen in some facility, right? Like the pro of everything exists in time. That's just a precedent that they have set up that is going to exist until the end of time, until they can figure out a way to make the Pro Plus. I mean, we were pining for the Switch Pro forever, so we can't really get mad that PlayStation beat them to the punch. The thing is, though, is that if you're going to charge a whopping 200 to 300 US more, it needs to have the same amount of improvement that would make that upcharge worth it. Because is
Exactly.
the spec between the original PlayStation 5, or what I'll call the Gen 2 PS5, and the PlayStation 5 Pro actually different? Because when you saw the PS4 versus the PS4 Pro, it's the same argument. Yeah, there was a difference. Yeah, it had uncapped at 4K, so you could get that 60 frames on a select number of games. But unless the PS5 Pro can come out of the gate and be like, every game you play locked at 60 frames at 4K, which by the way is still not that impressive. It's like most modern laptops can do that if you have a graphics card in it. It's just a question of like, what is the priority here? Like, what are we paying for?
Like,
Why is it an extra $300? Like, what difference does it provide that's so spectacular that it warrants some people's full next paycheck?
And you made a real, you brought up the point that I was hoping to bring up when comparing the PS4 to the PS4 Pro. It wasn't that big of a leap, but there also wasn't that big of a price gap between them. And also on top of that, they also released the PS4 Slim, which was cheaper than the standard PS4 Pro. So it was one of those things where it's like, okay, you're going to do the upgrade, but like, what am I getting other than just, a promise of some games will be better? Now, just one game that I can think of off the top of my head, Monster Hunter World, was one of the first games that I saw the real improvement with the PS4 Pro, because that game will run at 60 on the standard PS4, at like 1080 whatever, until a big monster shows up, and then it drops down to 30. And so getting the opportunity to play that game in performance mode, I've been playing it on my Steam Deck, so it's not the same thing, but it also has a performance mode because the Steam Deck has a better graphics card than the PS4. It Having it be smooth the whole time is really nice. So I saw the appeal of it, but I'm like, for an upgrade, I was like, I'm not gonna sell my Darth Vader PS4 and get a PS4 Pro, especially since my roommate had a PS4 Pro and we just played his. If we really wanted to use the Pro, we didn't have to, because a lot of the games I had didn't have a Pro mode retroactively, and
Yeah.
the ones that did weren't really games I cared about. And so I was like, I don't need to play games on his PS4. I can still play them on mine and be just fine.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I do want to mention is the GPU upgrade. I think that's good. But the footage they showed comparing PS5 to PS5 Pro didn't really do anything. Now, one, you could say it was YouTube compression, because it probably was. But to be honest, like, I didn't see much difference. There were often times where, like, you could show the game running on one system compared to the other, and you couldn't tell unless it said the words at the top. The experiment was, there was a guy who did a video where he randomly flipped the comparisons, and I couldn't tell the difference. Like, he randomly flipped which ones that they showed on the thing in his own video. He would zoom in and stuff, and it's like, I can't tell the difference. It looks pretty much the same.
The same, yeah.
Now, the other thing that I want to mention is the AI upscaling. Now, upscaling is the only time that I would say that something AI is interesting to me, because we've had that for a while in video, because it uses the information from the video to upscale it, not from external sources. So it's not stealing anything. It's only using what it has to work with. So that, I think, is fine. But at the end of the day, I'm like, why are they doing this with software when you could very easily and not that expensively as well, like very cheaply, put an upscaler in the fucking console? Because look, I don't understand. I know that it's different between retro consoles and modern ones, but like, you've got something like the RetroTink 4K, which can take a 240p signal, which is the signal that has the sharpest picture on a retro console, and upscale it to 4K, no problem. So I'm like, and they're saying it's upscaling. They're not saying it's like better fidelity or anything. So I'm like, okay, if the GPU is going to take care of the fidelity, why not just have a separate, cheap piece of hardware that, it's not that expensive to line double everything, and then get it up to 4K, 8K, whatever. But instead they're using AI to do that, and I'm like, why? That just puts more strain on the system. It's so weird to me that they're doing that. I don't know. Maybe they got a deal on it or something. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, everything's going software based because hardware is just so much more expensive. The more you add to a system, the more that you have to place under warranty, and the more that can go wrong. Even if it has never in the history of life gone wrong, it is still a liability, because every time you ship something out, there's always a chance something breaks. The problem we run into, and I mean this in all, the AI upscaling, according to the article I've pulled up just so I can know a little bit more about what I'm talking about, is specific for using things like advanced ray tracing, because basically it's an AI that assists another AI in determining what ray tracing should be equated to. Because ray tracing is just, and I'm going to use a terrible term here, but it's just raw dogging the light, right? Like, it's like, okay, instead of having to think really hard, all natural light is all natural light. We're going to show it as the game creators intended. This is an AI that goes through to game boost it. Oh, I'm sorry, to advance ray trace. Basically is a system that goes, that light specifically needs ray tracing. And then the system can easily pick which lights it needs to support at any given time. So its intent is to take more off of the GPU at the time so that you get a more consistent frame rate. Okay, great. Or you could just do that in software with the game itself.
And so here's the thing I don't understand about ray tracing, is because I rarely use it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just don't think it looks that good for games. Like, I got into an argument with a friend of mine recently. They wanted to do this Minecraft series on
the
stream.
RTX Minecraft series with the ray tracing.
So here's my thing. They wanted to do this series, and I'm like, great, I'd like to do it. Can we do Twitch integration? Well, it doesn't exist for Bedrock. Or it does, but it's in beta. And I'm like, why don't we just play Java? Because we can have as many mods or whatever as we want, and you can still keep it fairly vanilla, because there's mods that just fix things in Java that are quality of life things. And they were just so obsessed with using using the RTX mode in Bedrock, and I'm like, it doesn't even look that good in
Right,
Minecraft.
but that's also a texture problem. Because there is, and you can go on YouTube right now and just be like, the world. There is shit in Minecraft that they've created that looks almost like life, and this is
the argument I was making. I'm like, there are texture packs for Java, for the Java version, that make it look even better than the ray trace version, and it uses less power. It uses less of the shit.
Somebody has figured out how to force Java to do ray tracing. Like, it exists. It's just a pain in the ass to create.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, there are ways of doing this. And because I even remember, like, there were like, back when I was on a server with a bunch of other people, there were optional mods that I turned off for performance, because I wanted the game to run fine. I was like, as long as it looks like Minecraft, I don't care. But Sky, who played with me, like, she had the enhancements on, and her game looked like stunning. And I'm like, okay, I get that. But the ray tracing stuff I've seen from Minecraft specifically, it just makes the game look really dark and like I can't fucking see anything. Why would you want the game like this?
And then
And
a
I'm
lot of
just
that
I
has
don't
to
get
do
it.
with light sources because again, ray tracing is like so there's global illumination, which we've both seen, which is
Mm-hmm.
in a game, everything just has light that doesn't have to have a source. Like you can just kind of see. Ray tracing's whole purpose is that unless there is a light source, it is dark. Which means in
Mm-hmm.
Minecraft, where there is global illumination almost all the time, if the sun is up,
Mm-hmm.
everything has light.
Yeah.
It turns that off. So now only when the sun is up do things have light, which darkens the game by like 70% immediately. So you have to put more light sources out. Like again, that's what people like about it is that it's supposed to reflect more natural lighting.
Yeah,
But
and see
here's a question. Does
that's
that actually affect anything other than preference?
and see that's the thing too. Like I don't care about that. Like when I'm playing a game, I'd like to be able to fucking see it. Like
But see,
that's the
that's the
thing with
thing
me.
is like that's where people put the line in the sand, right? Because as graphics improve, it becomes more of a priority,
And
which is why you have visually stunning games with little to no substance because they
and
spent 90% of the time making it polished, but they didn't actually fix anything
and
or
for
they
some
didn't
games
actually
I
design a
understand.
game.
For some games I understand. Like that you want to have that natural light or anything. But the argument I was just like arguing with them, I'm like, I don't understand why you want this for Minecraft.
Right, because
Like
why does Minecraft, a game about pixelated squares, need
and
to
you know what?
be high fidelity?
Do you know what their response was? They're like, "Oh well, well because I've used it a lot on Quake and it looks really good on Quake." I'm like, Quake's like a game from the '90s. You want ray tracing and that? Who cares? It's
Well,
like
that's the thing is that they
I don't
released
know.
their own version of it with ray tracing specific. Like Quake's developers were like, "Have you considered playing the remaster with ray tracing?" But that's the thing is that it's easier to run ray tracing in old games once it's been implemented because you're
I
not
guess,
having to render all this craziness.
but like if I
Because again,
want
it's
realistic lighting in a game like Quake or Minecraft, I'm already like this is a pixel like game. This is a pixel based
right,
um
but we're
like 3D game. Why the fuck would I want natural lighting in that? I'm
right.
already
We're at the
in a
same
world
argument
like,
that you would have of like if I could offer you two cars, right? A
Mhm.
fuel efficient Honda or a Maserati. They both completely function the exact same way. One just cost $75,000 and the other one cost at market 31 out the door. They both perform the same. The mileage on the Honda is technically better, but it's more of a luxury experience to sit in the Maserati. Which one would you pick?
I would obviously pick the cheaper one because I'm like I
Right.
don't need
Okay.
all the extra
And
luxury
that
shit.
and that is a preference thing, right? Because that's how it is. Because there are some people that would immediately pick the Maserati just out of principle. Oh, it's worth more. That's what I want. And that is bleeding over into other games. That is how it is. Because as a person who appreciates retro games, it is not how the game looks. Looks are an aesthetic picture, right? Like there's certain games that have certain styles to them that, round out the game to feel more of an identity. But like if a game looks like doo doo but plays and you have a great time with it, you don't care that it looks like doo doo. But there are people out there that refuse to play a game unless it looks good. Like that's all they
And th-
want is just
and
their
this is the
eyes
thing.
to be visually stunned.
This is the thing. To me, and I think the industry should go this way, graphics should be the least important thing when it comes to a game. It should, if your game has a story, it should have a good story. If it has gameplay, it should have good gameplay. If it has good, have good controls, voice acting, sound, all this other stuff is way more important than the way the game looks to me. If the game looks
But
pretty,
that's
great. But if the game is pretty and has no substance, then it's a waste of time.
right. But this kind of brings it into a weird conversation. And it's the idea, it's like, what other forms of media do you allow that though? Like if you watch a movie and the whole movie looks like crap, but it has a phenomenal story, does that bother you?
I mean, it really depends because now I'm thinking of if I think to like a movie that I like but it looks terrible, uh, would be
Like if
probably
you're
so.
watching a movie, like a
Hold on. Let me
movie,
finish my
and
thought. Like Solo, Star Wars story. The thing is shot and lit terribly, but I still think it's a fun movie.
but does that ruin the movie for you? Like a movie with a captivating story, but it just looks like it was filmed on nothing but shaky cam and lit with a candle.
Well, keep in
Like,
mind, I'm one of those people who I like seeing like weird bad stuff because I know that it was
mhm,
practical effect or knowing how something is made just by looking at it makes me appreciate it. Like
mhm,
perfect example. Um the new Rescue Rangers movie that came out, I think it was last year, um, there was a scene where there was 2D animation, CG, stop motion, live action, and models all in the same scene. And my first thought, I watched it with Sky, and the first thought both of us had was, whoever had to composite this must be given a fucking medal, because holy shit, how do you composite a scene with all these different animation styles in it? And that's shit that I love. I love seeing stuff and I'd be like, oh, I know how that was made, or oh, that's cool, how did they do that? Like, especially when I watch an old movie and I'm like, how the fuck did they do this effect? I know how to do it now, but how would they have done it in the 80s? And I like that shit. So I'm a weirdo, I guess, when it comes to that. So when I watch something like Solo, and I'm like, yeah, it kind of affects the experience when some of the scenes are lit terribly and shot horribly, but at the end of the day, as long as the whole movie is enjoyable, then it doesn't really bother me as much.
Right. And that's all of this to come back to the idea that, like, there are certain media that certain things come off as important. And gaming has changed, because at one point, gaming was, well, we can't make the game look good. Like, it can look as good as the Atari will let me make it, but you're not here for how it looks. I mean, that's kind of part of it, but like, you're here for the game you're playing. Like, here's the story, here's the characters. Do you feel any kind of way? And that's why so many games were what we would consider arcade style now, because there wasn't enough to hold you in. Like, they didn't have the data in the console to make a game that lasted super long, you know?
Well, let me give you an option from the other side. Those indie games that try to really hard to look like chunky 8-bit, I don't really care. Like, if you like, they don't like. There's one thing, make your game look like an NES game. Okay, cool, that's great. But then you've got games that like have this like really chunky like pixel style that looks like that. No game would have looked like that back then, because nobody was going to make pixels so chunky.
There's somebody that did an entire video on like the emulation of 8-bit in 16-bit, like where there's so many people have seen what people think it looks like, that when they actually see what it looks like, it's nothing similar at all. Like, people are like, oh, I know what a Sega game looks like. And then they play the Sega and they're like, why does it look like this?
Like, there's one game I reviewed way back. I got a code of, it's I think it's like what's it called, March of the Slime or something like that. But it's that style that's like, oh, I think I know what 8-bit looks like. It's not, and then you compare it to something like Bloodstain, Curse of the Moon. That's actually what 8-bit looks like. Yeah, it's a little enhanced because, they don't have to sit with those limitations, but they actually know what an 8-bit game looks like. When you get those ones that are like, let's say, that advertise 8-bit graphics, and it looks nothing like what those games look like, you're just like, why? Why did you not play any of those games?
Because it's not worth saying 8-bit at that point, because it's more like pixel style graphics, which is its own thing, and you can say that. But everybody, again, so much of the shit in the last 5 years has just been based off of nostalgia that they'll just slap stuff on anything. They'll just be like, just like the games from your childhood.
So, anyways, we've gone way off the topic, as we usually do. Yeah. So the whole like ray tracing is cool. I get it. It's just the AI upscaling, man. It's the one thing that I'm just like, you could have done this so much better, but you chose to do this. To do this with software, and it's just gonna like, all I can see happening is it's gonna be like really hard on the GPU, when they could have just done this externally with a piece of hardware that would have cost them no more than $15. Like, that's the way I'm thinking of, and they could have probably lowered the price, because they probably wouldn't have needed to put as powerful a GPU in there.
In this one specifically, this one's actually going to come off of, at least according to this article, it's coming off of the CPU. It's not going to be a GPU driven up AI upscaler.
Oh, okay.
Now, Game Boost mode, which is apparently a thing that's going to be happening specifically for PS4 games, will be part of the GPU, and that's basically just AI injection of effects. Insert quotations around effects, because we don't have any proof of what that means. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this thing. The CPU is the same. They didn't change anything. The CPU is the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Now, there's just, maybe they might overclock it. GPU, they're not announcing yet. RAM, they're not announcing yet.
They said the GPU was like 43% stronger, and I'm like, that's not that big of a boost.
Woo!
Yay, 43%.
You know what you're really paying for? Like, the biggest thing I've seen here different between the two is that they're going from 1 terabyte maximum to 2 terabyte for internal storage.
Okay, I understand that.
And that's NVMe is just, I mean, it's getting cheaper, but it's still not the cheapest. So if you're paying for raw storage area, that's probably the majority of where the cost is coming from. Is they're just getting.
But here's the fun thing. My brother bought a second terabyte for his PS5, and it still cost him less than what. Yeah, it still cost him less than what this fucking costs. Like, but I don't know. It's just.
But don't you want the optional 4K drive that will cost an extra $100 more? Or my favorite, Wi-Fi 7, which is negligibly different than the Wi-Fi 6.
It's so dumb. What I
like again, it's upgrades for the sake of upgrades, not upgrades for the purpose of a better experience.
Like I really want to see
status symbol.
I actually like asked my buddy OneRoll because he hasn't tried it yet, but I wanted to see if he did. When I was talking about this on stream, I asked him, I'm like, have you ever like used your RetroTink 4K to like upscale PS3 or PS4 to 4K? Or like maybe like Xbox 360 or something like that, and he's like, I haven't. And now I'm curious to see if he tries it out to see, because I want to see. Let's see. I think he has a PS5. I want to see if he upscales that to 8K using the RetroTink, or if he can even go to 8K. He might only be stuck at 4K. But I'd like to compare 4K from the RetroTink, from a regular PS5 to 4K on the PS5 Pro, and see what the fucking difference is. And if I have this feeling it's gonna look better on the original PS5 going through the RetroTink, and I'm like, this could have been very easily fixed with a piece of hardware, but instead they're using software, and it makes no sense to me. Absolutely no sense.
I'm actually Googling something specific. Okay. No. So here's the thing. And if you just Google this, it's like, what's the difference between upscaling and native 4K? If you upscale anything from its native to the next, it is forcing or duplicating pixels to fill a space.
Yeah, it's called line doubling. That's what it's called.
So all you're doing, so it's like, although both native and upscales offer the same resolution, there is no more greater detail. It's at that point. So even if
but that's my point.
Going to be different.
Well, that's my point. They're talking about upscaling. They called it upscaling. They didn't say
it's frame
it was
generation.
fidelity.
We're just adding extra shit in there.
Like they said, the GPU was used for the fidelity. Now they're saying there's a separate chip for specifically for upscaling, and I'm like, okay, but like they're doing it through software. Again, it's not gonna be as good, and it's gonna be harder on the system when they could have easily just line doubled it. Because when you're talking about, I'm not talking about graphics. I'm talking about upscaling. I'm talking about the picture quality. When you take an NES, an RGB signal from an NES that's 240p, and you upscale with the RetroTink 4K to 4K, you are line doubling every line so that it's naturally upscaling from its original resolution to output to the max resolution that the device can do, so it doesn't look stretched, it doesn't look washed out, it doesn't have all these problems that cheapo scalers used to have. It's an actual full-on line doubling of the picture, so you're getting the exact resolution, you're getting the exact same experience at the smaller resolution that you're getting at the bigger resolution. It just is working better on bigger screens, such as like a 4K TV. So that's the point I'm making. They're calling it upscaling, and if they don't mean upscaling, if they actually mean better graphical fidelity, well, they fucking advertised it wrong. You see what I mean?
And again, there's so much going on with this, because the idea is like everybody's pushing 4K, but the average person, I say that it's a little different now because you can buy a 4K TV for like $150, but it's not good 4K. It's just 4K technically.
Yeah.
And even and I found out recently that a lot of TVs that can boast 4K aren't actually 4K. It's the bare minimum that it allows it to be called 4K. So it's like an upscaled. It's like an AI upsampling of a 1440p monitor, so they can charge you 4K prices without the quality. So it's a whole thing. I think it's ridiculous because everybody's pushing 4K, but nobody wants 4K. Nobody's looking to play.
I mean,
4K.
My big thing is I don't really care about 4K because I can't capture it yet.
And it's
when I stream on Twitch, I stream at 720p specifically because there's that bug that still exists where if you stream at 1080,
above that, you can't.
Like there's a bug where if you stream at 1080, your options are 1080 or 240. Whereas if you stream at 720, you can go down to whatever you want, and you can actually upscale it to 1080 now. which is hilarious.
There's so much weirdness and all that. It's annoying because there's so much going on. Like the average, like I think genuinely the sweet spot for gaming is 1440. I don't think you really have to go any higher than that because it just seems ridiculous. Because number one, it's extra strain on a system for no reason. Your eye can't even see 4K. Like, and then there were like 8K gaming, and I'm like, for who? Who has why? Like, it doesn't look any different. You physically cannot see the difference between the two. Well, why not just make what work better?
the only people who can do 8K are the people who can afford like the very expensive TVs and stuff for that. So like, I guess if they were aiming for the like to the rich people's market, I guess they picked the right market because
but like nobody, but like even when you look at professional gamers, right? Because like let's assume that the majority, like at 100% of gaming, at least 30% are in the space of only competitive games. Like they only play Valorant, they only play COD, they only play Overwatch. That's the kind of things they're doing. Nobody's playing those games in 4K.
Yeah.
Like if you watch any MLG gameplay, they've got that shit cranked to like 240p at like 7,000 frames a second, and it looks like a potato, but they don't care because it's about performance.
I also recently learned that the human eye is somewhere between 30 and 60 frames per second, but people are still like, oh, it's better frames. I gotta have that 144 frames per second. It's like, no, you don't. You don't need that. You just think.
I'm gonna be honest. I will state it does feel smoother, which is a stupid thing to say. But like I have a 144 hertz monitor. The monitor to the right of it is 60 frames. There is a difference. Like you can feel a difference between the two, but is it enough to make the experience bad? No. Like like if it's there, great. But like again, I just don't get. Like most people's monitors are 1080p because that's considered FHD. That's full high definition. That's all people want. They just want the shit that they buy to work and to not be obsoleted every 5 minutes. It's its own thing. I don't know, man. Good luck, PlayStation. Like, do what you got to do, I guess, but don't be mad when people are grumbling about it. And goddamn it, Switch. I swear to God, if you pull the same thing.
I mean, the Switch is one of those things where it's like, this is the funniest thing to me too, because there was an article that came out and said, I think it was from IGN, that said the reason the PS5 Pro is as much as it is because there's no competition. I'm like, the Switch is almost outselling your most popular console, Sony. You don't consider them competition? Are you fucking ridiculous?
They don't though, and the problem with that is that they'll never consider. But they've never have. Nintendo has not been in the official console wars since maybe the GameCube.
They're not in the official console wars because they're above them.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. Is like if you look, the problem is that Nintendo thinks that they
are... You know what? I understand. Sony doesn't consider them competition because they're not even in the same league. So. That makes sense.
Okay. Well, but think about who the general consensus of people who play Nintendo products are. It is considered the family console.
A person with a heartbeat. That's the person who plays it.
But you have to remember that if they didn't think that they needed to be in other people's markets, they would not accept third-party titles. It is, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but even the Switch is like, or Nintendo, and the whole thing was like, oh, we fully expect to put Call of Duty on the Switch. That should be a weird factor for people because why? They don't need that game to be, but they want it, and it's because Nintendo is now looking at, because it's always been like a Xbox, PlayStation are like two rival brothers. You know, they're always going back and forth about who has the bigger specs, but they all know that their younger brother, I say younger metaphorically, but like the younger brother Nintendo is the solid console. It comes out, it works, it does what it's supposed to do. But they're not pushing the boundary. Like the Wii was probably the biggest difference in everything because it was the first one that was like, what about full motion control the whole time? But like they've never been like this is the most advanced piece of technology you can put in your hands like everybody else is doing. Now Nintendo is starting to think that they want to get into that market. And the only reason I believe that is because they're willing to do a Switch 2. If they didn't care, they'd just do something else like they did between the 3DS and the Switch, or the Wii U and the Switch. They're starting to like pull up their big boy pants and want to get into that market. And that's a weird time because now they are considering themselves. No one else. they are considering themselves competition. They are putting targets on Xbox and Sony because they want to start tackling that market. That's why they've decided to swap to an NVIDIA GPU, which they have never done because they've always used their own proprietary systems. And now they're starting to buy third-party products, which now means that they're going to start having third-party prices, which is going to be new for them because they've always been reasonably priced because they only had to pay themselves.
I mean, the rumor is that the next Nintendo system is going to be $399 instead of, or sorry, not $399. Yeah, $399 US. Which the Switch has always been $299, except the OLED, which is $399 Canadian, but it is what it is.
Well,
but in the way that I look at it is that, excuse me, so still getting over a cold. The thing that I think about is like you asked me is like who's playing the Switch. I'm like literally everyone, including the people who play on the other consoles. Like, that's the only way they were able to sell that much. And my thought is, like, just look at the VTuber community. They have a PC. Most of them have a PC and a Switch. They don't got anything else. That's all they have. Because most of them, I don't know why, they seem to think running games on their PC and their VTuber software all on the same computer is going to help them, but that is what a lot of them do. They just have a PC or they just have a Switch because they want the Nintendo stuff. And the way I look at it, too, is that, like, most of the people I know who have a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X, they also have a Switch because they want to get all of the games. They want to be able to play all the games. And yeah, you could say that, okay, why would somebody get a third-party game on the Switch over getting it on the PS5 or the Xbox? And my first thought is a lot of people don't care about the dips. Like, Doom Eternal runs at 30 on the Switch, and that's fine. It doesn't need to run at 60 on that system. And
yeah, but most people who get it,
most people who get it for that are fine with the way it runs. Like,
but
I'm still also from the camp that I think 30 frames is fine, and I think people are just so obsessed with frame rates that they don't even know what they want.
Well, it's such a weird thing because like the Switch has started doing something that I've always thought, like, you believe in digital media. Like, we've had that conversation, or not digital, physical media. You believe having the disc, having the cartridge is important. But now the Switch is starting to offer like third-party title games, but that you can only play through the cloud. For instance, they were like, Kingdom Hearts, the, collection through the cloud. Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4 through the cloud. And it's like, but they don't even offer this system with dedicated internet. Like, you have to have internet to use it. So, and I'm paying full price for this game. So I'm paying full price for a cloud key, which is odd. And this isn't a decision being made by Capcom. This is a decision being made by Nintendo because they want you to play the game, but they don't want to like optimize it for that console. So even they are starting to think like, well, we want you to get the full 60 frames per second. We want you to get the high fidelity graphics, but we know our console can't do that.
What I would think it would prefer is, and this is a Capcom thing, like when they offer stuff like Resident Evil 7 and 8 on the Switch, don't just make them cloud-only options. Make that something you can turn on and off. If somebody wants to play it offline and is okay playing it at 30 frames, just give them the option. Why do you have to butcher these games to be always online?
But see, that's the thing, is like,
don't have to.
Even new Nintendo games are going that direction. Like, and this is a problem because like they need to get this to their developers.
I don't think so.
And I know for a fact that they, like, Nintendo first-party developers are ambitious people. Like, I always use Breath of the Wild as an example because that is a phenomenal game for that series. But it chugged. Like, it chugged. Like, there'd be points where I was, and if I still had the stream, I'd use that as, like, example A. There were scenes in that game where I could only get, like, 2 frames a second. Like, it literally was struggling, and then it would go right back to normal. It would just be fine. But it was like, this is a first-party title. Like, it was developed for the Switch.
You could say that with first-party games on other consoles, too. Like,
yes.
A stutter that happens for 4 minutes when you're playing hundreds of hours of a game, to me, that doesn't equate to the experience. It's like when people, like, pause, like, anime, and they see, like, the in-between frames, and they're like, oh, look at how ugly this art style is. And it's like, that's not the experience you're having. You just paused it at a weird spot, And because it's not a keyframe and it's an in-between frame, you're going to say that that's the fucking way it looks? No, shut up. That's stupid. It's for 95% of your playthrough of Breath of the Wild, did the game run fine?
I mean, no, I'd say for the majority of it. It's things though that like, if you were a third-party developer and you're making a game that has to work on everything, if there's problems, that makes sense to me because like you didn't have one system to build off of, right? Like you didn't have a single architecture to build in. For the developer of a game to go, we gave it our best shot. This is what we can do with the system that we have been provided. And in order to keep the experience cohesive throughout the whole thing, there's just going to be drops. There's going to be stutters. There's going to be breaks. Because that's what the console itself can handle. And I use this as an example because it's the same thing that happened with the Xbox 360 when Oblivion came out. They had to physically break your console to get the game to work correctly. And that's not a good thing. I mean, props to them for figuring out how to do it to make the experience seem better. But they had to physically break your console to get it to work. And again, even with Tears of the Kingdom coming out, developers were talking like, yeah, we were kind of in the back and forth once they announced that there would be another Switch, that like we were seeing if we could wait for the new console, but it was like further out than we were wanting to go. So it's just like, it's interesting because all the shit we keep hearing about the Switch 2 is like, it's a PS4 in your hands. And it's like, that's a weird jump to make. Like, is that good? Like, am I excited for that?
I mean, I still think that's like, it's a weak argument because I mean, if stuff like Breath of the Wild can be done on the Switch, why is there such a big excuse for the hardware being underpowered when for other developers? Like, I understand, yes, first-party Nintendo, they're going to understand the hardware the most out of anybody. But in this day and age, every console is basically a computer.
Yes.
Why can we not figure this out? Again, I'll stress this. If Resident Evil 7 had an offline mode that ran at 30 frames per second on the Switch, I would be totally fine with that because at least the game runs. But now you're telling me that you can't do that. I just think it's ridiculous. Doom Eternal runs at 30 just fine on the Switch. Again, yes, it might be a little underpowered compared to the other consoles, but they figured it out. What's so hard about that? That's what I want to know.
Do you know what the biggest problem about all of this is? It has nothing to do with what's underpowered and what's not. It's cost.
My biggest thing is I think a lot of
$60 for if you can buy a better experience of that same game for the same price.
Well, I think the main comparison between those is the Switch can be in handheld, and yes, you can use the Portal with the PS5, but it doesn't have any guts in it. And like you can have a truly portable experience, and yeah, there's the Steam Deck now, but at the time there was.
I was gonna say that's the big competition because even though the console wars don't include the Steam Deck either, the main competition to the Switch is the Steam Deck because essentially the same cost, you can play. I'd say 60% of the titles that's on the Steam Deck right now is only $399.
The Switch's base price is $299.
Yeah, so it's $100 difference for a bigger library for the most part.
You were saying it's the same price. That's literally what you're saying.
Like you can. I want to Google this and make sure because the base model Steam Deck right now is relatively cheap because the OLED basically obsoleted it. Steam Deck base price.
I know they went down in price when the newer ones came out because I have the older style Steam Deck. I have the top
$296.65. $296.65 US right now for the 64 gig.
Okay,
which is still more memory than the base Switch comes with.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's fair, I guess. But
that's because the competition. So this is the thing: Nintendo has always had a corner in the market because they were the only people with the cojones big enough to go. We want a good experience, handheld or docked. We don't just want a Wii or a Game Boy. We want something that you can do both with, and they will always have my respect for coming up with it. I was a diehard 3DS fan. I'm still salty about that going away. But I respect the hell out of the Switch. But there's so much about the Switch that was perfected with other stuff, even from Nintendo, that I'm just like, I don't know if it's worth me personally. I can't make myself spend $45 to $60 on a game that I on any other console or a portable laptop or even a tablet at this point can have a better experience with. And that's the thing about the Switch, is that it's fantastic in isolation, but it's hard to compare it to other things because it's so niche. You can't put it against an Xbox, because that's like saying this truck is not faster than this car. Because they're both functionally different. They both do different things. How many times on a console can I rip my controller in half and use two different things between two different people? I can't. That is strictly to the Switch. But if I could play Doom on the Steam Deck for essentially the same cost as that, and I can get a higher frame rate and better graphical fidelity and faster response and analog sticks that don't constantly make me want to jump off of a bridge, like, why would I spend the same money? That's the problem, is that when there was no competition, the Switch was all, like, that was the king because there was nothing against it. But as these other companies have started dropping Switch competitors, they either have to go, well, we're just going to stand on the backs of the people that already support us, or they have to up their game. And that's where I'm like, they're starting to see that they don't have a void of competition anymore. Like, they can't go, because like now even certain Mario games are bleeding over onto Apple devices. Like, you can play, what was it? Mario Kart on your phone now. So yeah,
That's
it's not the same experience.
That's not even close.
But it's the fact that they're starting to show that they're interested in porting first-party Nintendo titles to other consoles. And at some point, they're going to just the shift that everything's going, because PlayStation was Die Hard. We're not going to be on PC, and now they're releasing their first-party games on PC.
Except
at some
Bloodborne.
point, yeah, well, just because they hate their fans. It just feels like Nintendo's starting to go in the same direction. They're starting to give in to fan pressure because they're doing things because people won't shut up about it. And at some point, it just feels like they're going to be doing the same thing. And yeah, they're going to make a ton more money if you can play a Nintendo game on anything. Like, if you could just straight up play Breath of the Wild on your PC, people would buy the hell out of that game because they'd be able to get whatever PC allows, to gameplay. But it's just like, it's an interesting time. It's not really an argument. It's just a weird observation about how Nintendo is changing against the market to try to stay competitive. Because if they didn't feel they needed to, they wouldn't. They wouldn't do these weird upgrades. They wouldn't change things. They wouldn't constantly be going after stuff. Like, it would just be as they've always done. Like, we're the kings of our corner and no one's touching it, and that's why nobody's even attempted. Because you and I both remember the day that those stupid YouTube videos where they were showing like the Xbox 180 handheld device that never existed and never had any intention of existing, but people wanted it. They didn't get it because there's no way to fight Nintendo in that market. But now there is, and it's weird because now we're having to see how Nintendo evolves to combat that.
I mean, it's the one thing is if you compare it to the other two consoles, yeah, okay, I get it. But a lot of the times with those games, they're not the same price. They'll charge more for it on the PS5 or the Xbox One, especially now the games are $70. Is it now? American instead of 60. And I think the only Switch game that's charged that much was Tears of the Kingdom. And that one is because that's a special case, I think, in that case. And I guess like if you compare it to the Steam Deck, yeah, the Steam Deck's it definitely runs better, but my argument for that one would be I still can get physical games for my Switch. I can't get physical games for my Steam Deck. I mean, you can, but it's only certain ones. And I guess the thing that I'm trying to say here is that when it all comes down to, people like to say it comes down to hardware. Personally, I think it comes down to the software. Like I said, you can make a game run better on the Switch, but a lot of developers just don't care. Or they just won't take the time to learn how to do it. And I still believe that's the case. Because there have been games on the Switch that look fantastic. Better than stuff that sometimes ends up on the competitors. So, in the end, like, these are just computers. At the end of the day, they're all fucking computers. And if they make it happen on several different hardwares on Steam, they should be able to make it for the consoles as well. It's just, I don't buy the excuse that, the PS5 Pro is necessary because right now.
No,
because it's
not at all. Because it's not enough of a that's like if they came out with the PS6 right now and it was just the PS5 Pro. Like, there'd be no reason to upgrade other than forced obsolescence.
And if sales show anything, like the reason the PS2 was the most popular console sold of all time, it was not the most powerful of that era. It certainly wasn't. And And the Switch is catching right up to it. Is it the most powerful of the era? No, but it's selling more. It's because generally, I think the majority of people who play games do not give a fuck about graphics. The only people who do are the ones who are really hardcore about their system being the best. And at the end of the day, like, you buy if you want a PS5 Pro, great. It's still not going to beat some PCs. So it's really a moot argument at this point. At least that's how I feel, anyways.
Actually, that brings me to another thing. So there's two things I want to pull up to you.
Sure.
So the first one that I saw here was, it was just curiosity, because you said something that I was thinking about, and it was, well, I can still buy physical media for my Switch. And that got me wondering, because cost effectiveness is going to play a lot, because most game consoles come out a loss to the company, but over so many metrics sold, they make their money back.
Mm-hmm.
And then peripherals, accessories, the games themselves, those are what make you your money. I wasn't the only one to look at this. This is on GameFAQs, which tells you how old this is. But this is the forum question that was proposed. And they said if Nintendo did a 180 and made the new Switch digital only for cost effectiveness, what would you think? Guaranteed better quality experience with the games you're playing. But there is no physical cartridge anymore. It's only buying from the eShop.
If it was the only one in town who only did digital, like, say the options were, okay, Steam Deck and the new console, Nintendo console, are digital only, but I can still buy physical games for the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, I probably wouldn't be as quick to get it. I'd probably be like, I'll get it eventually, because it's like, this will lead into our other topic, which we can go into here soon. Okay. But like, it's important for me. Sorry, I still getting over cold. It's important for me to have physical games, because at any time, digital games could go away. Like the eShop closing, prime example. Those games, yeah. So Nintendo was nice enough to bring the Nintendo Wii Shop back so people could download their old purchases, but for years it wasn't. You couldn't re-download old purchases; it was just gone. So whatever you didn't download is gone. The eShop shutting down. You can download old purchases, but you can't buy new ones. So if you want to buy any of those games, you can't now, unless they're on other systems. Which, unfortunately, a good chunk of them are not. They were only on the Wii U or the 3DS. So it's one of those things where this is the whole problem with the whole digital thing. Who's to say, like, 10 years after I get my new Nintendo console, whatever it ends up being called, I know people like to say Switch 2, whatever. Who says 10 years down the line they don't shut that shop down and then I can't get any access to any of my games? What if the SD card or the hard drive on it or the solid state media on it gets erased and I have no other way to play those games because they're all digital? Well,
that's true.
I just lose all that money I spent. So to me, I'm like, if you can't give me an option to have a physical game, I don't care about your system. Now, my one exception is the Steam Deck, because I already own 1,500 Steam games, and Steam's been around for so long that, the only games that are going to go away are the ones that, are services or whatnot. So I don't have to worry about that as much.
Mm-hmm.
But with a Nintendo console, specifically thinking Nintendo console, they've shut down stores before. They're going to do it again. So I don't want a console from them that has no physical option. If I do get one from them, I'm going to wait till it's heavily discounted, because even if the best Mario, Zelda, whatever games that I want to play come out on it, I'm not going to support a console or Pokemon and whatever. I'm not going to support a console that doesn't give me an option to play my games physically. I should be able to own a physical copy of my game. It's like, that should be a right that people have.
But the thing is like, there is, so this is a lot of the argument that we see with this, genuinely. Physical media costs money. So for every disc, every cartridge that you sell, that is a loss of monetization to that product, unless you increase that product's price. And as digital media has become, because what we should have seen, and I say this as personally as I can be and as much passion as I'm allowed to have, when digital games became a form of purchase, we should have gotten those discounted. So if you could buy a $60 piece of plastic or just the digital code, it should have been discounted.
100%.
Because I'm not buying anything. I'm
digital
buying
games
the game.
Shouldn't have been digital AAA
full
games
price.
should have been $60 out of the gate. They should have been cheaper.
So with that, especially now, because every studio, no matter how much we love them or tout them as heroes of the genre, they're all going, well, it costs more because I have to pay people living wages. I have to do all the stuff. I have to keep the lights in the building. So games are getting more expensive. That's why they're $70 now. Okay, great. Why is it still $70 then for things that aren't requiring all that? How come the plastic isn't costing more? And it's because that's not really a cost. It's just a factor. But the thing is that they're using digital as a way of stating that they're cutting cost. Oh, well, we can keep games at $70 if we sell it to you directly, because then we only have to pay the digital storefront their royalties. But so like this is the crux of everything. It's like, yes, digital media is great, but we've always seen it with PC games because I have them. They just stopped creating optical drives for PCs that you can just have in the PC. So now if I own Diablo 3 on disc, it doesn't matter. And on top of that, I own Mass Effect, the collection, the original collection on disc, and none of those discs work anymore because they were just keys to get a digital version. So even now, just to play Red Dead on the Xbox Series X, I had to download like 40 gigs worth of shit before I could even play the game.
Yeah.
From the disc. And that's the thing. It's like the argument of the disc only works if the disc itself is actually the game. And they've done this crazy shit where they're making it to where, oh, well, even if you own the physical media, until it connects to the internet and registers that this game is you can't play it. So if you're in offline mode, you're just fucked.
And I guess this goes into our back to our topic, going back to talking about stop killing games. So there's an update about this I wanted to talk about. I'm sure you've heard of Pirate Software, Thor.
Yep.
So he made a video not too long ago. I think it was almost a month ago now, but where he talked about why he doesn't support the Stop Killing Games initiative, and his main arguments were about service games. And I'm like, if you and my thought was, dude, if you watched any of the videos Ross produced on this, he said service games are one part of it, but it's mostly majority games that have single player modes that require an online connection. Like the biggest thing, like the thing that everything's around this is talking about the crew. The crew went offline, so nobody can play their game anymore. Well, the crew, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the crew had a single player mode that you also can't access anymore because the game servers have been shut down.
But it's one of those. It's another game that its whole purpose is it requires an online connection to play.
And so if
it never had an offline mode, or actually, no, it did have an offline mode, but it didn't do anything for you. It was just a racing driver.
Yeah.
So it had a game. It just wasn't the full game.
The point I have is you'll get a single player game and it'll require a connection to a server. And I'm like, why? Like it's you're playing it offline. You're playing it solo. Who cares if it has to connect to a server? Make that so the single player mode's available offline. If you want to have, online play, then fucking okay, you need to connect to a server. It's DRM BS. That's really the big thing crux of this. It's all DRM.
Well, it's also and this is going to sound ridiculous, but again, Blu-ray, which is where a lot of those games came on, it is it can hold a ridiculous amount of storage. But take a game like the new Call of Duty. Not a great example, but just for size. It's like 355 gigs. That's an insane amount of storage. It will not fit on that disc. It'll fit on like 4 or maybe 2, realistically. But the problem is that all these server-based games aren't doing it because they want you to have an internet connection. It's a way to offload all of the information onto a central unit instead of your console or your PC. Especially in these like The Crew is a great example because at the time it was a high fidelity racing game with intense graphics and all this craziness, and it was a huge area, which on a modern console they would have to quote unquote limit performance because the console was having to work so much harder to provide the experience they wanted. So what they do is they give you a key via the game and you log into the service, and the console is just basically back and forth communicating to the server who is doing all the hard work. In that case, if they were like, I need you to make this single player, they would have to make it in a way that the entirety of the game is in your console. And fundamentally, that would be different. Now, they could also go, okay, here's private server access. Here's what you need. But that opens up its own can of worms because then you have to be able to allow specific things to source code. I'm speaking from no experience in this. But it's the same problem they had when they released Halo Combat Evolved and the source code got out, and then they were able to use that to get into Halo 2, which caused a whole bunch of problems. So, it's just, how do you win? How do you win on that? Like, if you're a person trying to make money, like, how do you win on that?
And see, here's the other thing too, that I want to just put out there is that nobody's asking people to keep the servers on. Like, that's not what people are asking for. What you talk about, like, these games need these massive 300 gig updates, whatever. Just make an update available, let people download it, and then they can play the single player. Like, what's so hard about that?
Well, see, if it was a game like let's say God of War for PS5, that has no server access other than the online store and cloud saving. That's it. Everything else is rendered in game to your console, ready to go. The reason that people are pissed off at The Crew is because it was a largely multiplayer experience that people wanted to continue. They spent a lot of money on cosmetics. They spent a lot of money on cars. They spent a lot of time playing that game and leveling up and getting the city, and they like it. And that's the right of anybody to like the game they're playing. But the problem is that, like, how do you connect that? Who's dedicating that? Who's doing that responsibly? Like, do you just put it out there and say, like, hey, whoever the fuck wants to do this can just do this? Like, take it, have fun. Like, it gets weird because, again, that is a server-based game. It is not an individual console-based game, from my understanding, at least from what I saw. But again, if they were like, hey, God of War, we're officially discontinuing that game, no more updates, nothing else, you can't play it anymore. That's a slap in the face because that is a primary single-player experience that's in a box. Like, you can't.
That's the main thing I'm talking about.
If they end the game and then your console just refuses to play it, that's weird because that is based in that. You know, they shut World of Warcraft down. Whatever. People figure that out. But like, ultimately, it's over. But like, if I'm playing like a PS1 game and all of a sudden the PS1 game just doesn't work anymore, that's weird because it doesn't even have online. Like, that's an odd one. But that's where we're coming back into that shit where, like, if it detects that you don't have internet access, you can't play it, even though it's a strictly single player game.
Yeah.
Which is weird. And I don't know who thought that was a cool idea. Other than what you said for DRM or DMR or whatever the fuck it is, the fucking DRM, what is it, Denuvo or some
Denuvia,
yeah. It's just like I don't get that one. I don't get the one where they're like, hey, I know you bought this game and you live in the middle of nowhere and don't have access to the internet, so good luck never playing the game you bought. It's like, oh, okay,
and like,
thanks.
And like, yeah, and so like, I'm not saying, games that won't fit on a single Blu-ray disc that don't need updates. Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. Like, what I'm saying is that, the updates are available when they're available. Most people would have installed them when they've gotten it, and if they don't have it available, just make it so that the game has some kind of function without needing the updates, and if they need to get it, they can probably download it a third-party way. Like, it's just like, to me, I'm like, okay, you could say, all right, that's going to take up server space, but like, every game needs updates now. Every game takes up server space. So it's like,
you know what the real fix to this is? It's not even stop killing my games. It's stop making games that require it to be able to be killed.
Exactly.
Stop making server-based games. Stop making games that my console can't play.
And that's the whole point of the initiative, is to get developers to make it so that the game will function without needing an online connection at all. Like, if it's an MMO or it's a game that is meant to have online play, like Overwatch or something, no, we're not. People aren't ridiculous. We're not going to be like, oh, you can't. That game is. You should have it. You should host it forever. That's not what we're saying. The thing that's being said is that, if I buy a game 10 years from now that was 10 years old, and I want to put it in my console and play it, I should be able to play it. And if it needs updates, okay, I'll update. But don't take that away from me. Don't say because I can't connect to a server, I can't play my single player game anymore.
Yeah, and that's such a weird thing too, because we're already experiencing that, like, beyond that measure. Like, there's 360 games that you can pick up right now that you physically can't play because it just won't connect. Like, there's just nothing you can do. And it's the same thing with PS3 games too. That generation really started that trend of, oh, you don't have internet to do something, and here's a limited menu that you can get into, but you can't really do. Like Mag died within 2 years, and that was a $60 game out the box.
Yeah.
And there you go. You just can't play it anymore because,
I mean, look at what's that game that recently shut down? Concord. Like,
yeah,
nobody fucking bought that. Nobody played it. They're not refunding it. They'll say the game might come back. Maybe.
Well, did you see that? Like, the people that were playing it were like, "Well, the only reason it didn't get played is because you guys suck at advertising." Like,
and also the game looks ugly.
Okay, but see, there's that. It is again.
Yep, I know.
We're
I
bringing
know.
it back full circle.
I'm not saying graphically it looked ugly. I'm saying art wise it looked
artistically.
ugly.
But again, that plays such like aesthetic is such a big thing, and that's the thing is that a game that could be absolutely wicked fun can be judged the fuck out of because it looks weird. You know,
I didn't even know the game existed. Like I remember it was shown during like summer, like PlayStation and Summer Games Fest and stuff, but I do not remember a single thing about that game. That's why like it's so surprising that like, you know, we're hearing it shutting down. It's because Sony didn't fucking advertise it.
Yeah, and that's a lot of games. I mean, like there's so many games that either like and it just proves that no game is and no studio is invincible because like right now fucking Destiny is having a time. Like Bungie is
I heard about
essentially
that.
No more.
Yeah, no, I heard about that. But yeah, no, I just like the main thing is about you know, I like Thor. I like the videos he makes. I think he's a smart guy. He talks a lot about game development stuff. As somebody who's been looking into getting more back into game development, his advice is really useful. But this is like a dangerous stance for him to have because not only was he like picking the wrong battles with his statement against stop playing game or stop killing games. He refused to talk to Ross. He refused to talk to anybody else in the industry who was for it because his opinion was he thinks it's bad for the industry. I'm like, dude, well, yeah, okay, sit in your box then, where you only agree with your own opinion. Like,
Echo
fuck
chamber.
off.
That's literally
like fuck right off. You're gonna sit here every day and send me YouTube shorts about how to make games better and shit, and you won't take a single second to hear out somebody else, other people in the industry, and other people who are concerned about things for this industry to try to save these games. Fuck right off. Like, who's to say your game? What the fuck's it called? Hardbound. His game Heartbound has no physical version so far that I know of. In 10 years, it could go off Steam. What if I want to play Heartbound? Well, I guess I fucking can't now because you didn't make it available anywhere else when you clearly could have. You clearly could have taken that time to fix this and make it so it's available in other places. Like, it's bullshit. This guy's worked in the industry for years. Worked for Blizzard. He's seen this shit happen firsthand. Look what happened to Overwatch. You can't play the original Overwatch anymore. And yes, Overwatch 2 does exist, and if you did buy a copy of Overwatch, you can play Overwatch 2 with all your stuff. But at the end of the day, if I want to play the 6v6 Overwatch game, even just the single player that doesn't exist, I can't do it. I have to play Overwatch 2, and I don't want to play Overwatch 2 because fuck Blizzard.
Well, see, and this is where we're coming down to, and this is a fundamental problem that we're gonna have to like. This is our we're getting older boohoo statement. I'm looking at it because I don't want to come off baseless in this. Like, I really want to get better at giving at least like a source, and I'm just googling through things. Do you know where a lot of the problem comes from? Genuinely, the group of people that care about game conservation is getting smaller.
Yeah.
It's like the same people who care about like historical artifacts, right? Like the amount of people for the United States that give a shit at all about Plymouth Rock, you know? People are throwing cans of spray paint at it and peeing on it. Like, that just shows you that no one cares. And it's the same thing that's happening to classic consoles because people are like, oh my gosh, the SNES was such a staple for gaming because of what it did. And then out of like 30 people, 7 might be like, yeah, I love the SNES. And then the other half probably have never even touched one. And the problem is that it's hard to get traction with a group of people when the majority of people doing an activity are so new that they don't even know that these older things exist, which is a weird thing to think about because if you would think about it, you and I, because we're around the same age, if you said Game Boy Color, we both know what that is. Like, we can picture it in our head right now. We can probably even remember the little jingle that happened when you turned it on. But if I went up right now to any of my any of my younger relatives and asked them what a Game Boy Color is, the first thing they're going to think of is the Switch.
Oh, of course.
And that's where it gets difficult to convince these people, hey, stop doing this. But they're not, like, no matter how many signatures are on that page, they're looking at, well, look at all this new money who doesn't care that we're doing this.
Well, I mean, the other thing about that, too, I was going to say is right now, the European Union is probably the biggest chance that this has of starting to come into law because if enough people in Europe sign the petition in their area, the European Union has to consider it for law. Like there's a certain like threshold they have to leave where it has to go in and they have to start discussing it. So it doesn't mean that it becomes law, but it means that it has to be actually looked at by a governmental body. And the European Union, I don't know if you know about them, but they don't fuck around. Like Apple thought they could get away with curving the European Union, and then finally they caved and said, "Okay, fine, we'll put USB-C on all our devices because
it was just cheaper to do that than it was to try to do some shit for Europe and some shit for North America.
It's less, and it being proprietary, like there needs to be a standard, and so the European Union forced them to do a standard. It's happening with other things too. So the European Union has sway in things like this. Yeah, you could say, okay, well, how is that going to affect North America? Well, people will think twice about about developing games, about what they do when they develop games, because Europe is a massive market, just like North America is. Like, they're not going to change their game so it only works a certain way in North America compared to Europe. That costs more money.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing, is it's already doing that, though. There's like specific games that they're like like we've been seeing that since like the 90s, that the European, like the EU, because of the PEGI system, gets a completely different set of games under the same title than North America does. Like, completely like altered and censored and changed because of that. So my question is like, if it was console based, like the physical hardware, and they're like, all of your devices must have USB Type-C on it, and they're like, okay, because it's easier to do, but like software changes are so easy, like in comparison. Like, exactly. I feel like then that just means that they'll be like, oh, Europe says that we can't stop killing these games. Okay, cool. We're going to just do a European server. It's cheaper to do it that way. You guys, there you go. North America, get bent. Because nobody
can just connect to a European server from North America. It's not that hard.
Yeah, no, and you could. You're right. You would, you could, but that's not a cost to them. That's you having to pay something to do that.
Well, I guess
because that's extra on you, and at that point they don't care because you're
the
one
lot of games.
Doing it.
You get to pick your server, so it's like you just pick a European server. Like that's
right. That might be the only one that's even on. You might log into the game and NA is just not there.
Exactly. So it's like, so I understand what you're saying, but in the long term, I think developers aren't going to spend extra time to turn features off for people in North America because they have to turn them on in Europe. That just doesn't make sense. That's extra cost.
I think of things like where they're like turning specific shit off, and then people are having to do backhanded shit to get back to it, right? Like when you're working with an Adobe product, because they're the kings of doing shit like this, and they're like, oh my gosh, are you having problems with Adobe Photoshop 11? Well, have you considered upgrading to 14 since that we're on? And you're like, no, I paid for this, it works. And they're like, oh, well, because you're not getting updates, the updates that are coming out are actively sabotaging your active software, so you will have to eventually. And that's the kind of shit that, like, the pettiness is there. Like, we don't like to think, but like companies will do that shit. They will absolutely obsolete you out of anything the fuck that they can make money out of. And that's all of them. All the ones that we love will do that shit to you because it's more cost effective to force you into the new thing than it is in the old thing. It's cheaper to give you something new than it is to fix the broken thing. And we see that all the time because they do that shit with cars, especially in North America. Because if you get a fender bender, they'll be like, totaled, just go buy another car. It's not even worth fixing this one. And you're like, oh, okay, great.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't get me started on Adobe because that's a whole nother fucking thing right now. Like,
but it's more of showing you how the standard of where things are, because we come from and this is gonna sound so boomer. We come from a generation where if something can be used, we use it, right? Like, it doesn't matter what the thing is. If you can get the job done with it, you can get the job done with it. If you buy something, you owned it. If you sold something, it was sold. If you broke something, it was fixable for the most part. Like that's what we came from. We are now moving towards a generation of people we're now moving towards a mindset of people where the idea is constantly just replace everything. Replace the item, replace the software, replace the game. No, it's new. It's got to be the sequel. It's got to be this next thing. That's why the life cycles of these games are diminishing exponentially faster than they used to be. Because fucking Quake 3 was on like a server for like 15 years and they can't even get like Halo Infinite to last more than 3 years. Like,
wait, is Halo Infinite shut down?
No, but they're at the end of its life cycle already. Like they're not updating it anymore. Yeah, they're already done with it. And that's the thing is like it has nothing to do with the companies because like they'll milk the shit out of this. They'll like if there's enough people playing a game, they'll keep it going. But the problem is that the moment they see the numbers start to drop, they're like, we lost the attention span. We got to move to something else, bigger, shinier, different, so they can pull people back in.
And that's the thing. The standards need to change, and this could force the standards to change. I don't like regulation. I don't. But the companies have been allowed to do what they want forever, and now they're nickel and diming us like every chance they get. So, like, there's no like the whole point of the European Union is consumer protection, and it's very, very obvious that consumer protection is not that big of a deal to the games industry.
Right.
Like,
but that's it. But I also blame us. I genuinely do because a lot of it has to do with the fact that we put up with it and then we continue
100%.
to do it. If we
100%.
didn't buy it, it wouldn't keep happening. But the problem is that people don't care. The fact that like everyone that I knew at least, and everyone that I would run into on forums, when Overwatch 2 was announced, they're like, I'm just not going to buy it. We'll just play the old one. Like it's the same game. Overwatch 2 should have just been a DLC. Like, and yet somehow it still took off. Like people didn't care. Like all of the people banging on the doors.
Well, it's because they can't play the first game anymore.
Right, and that's because it was active, and then everybody who didn't give a shit played Overwatch 2, and Blizzard was like, well, why are we supporting the first one if everyone's going to play this one anyway? We'll just close the game down and force all the naysayers to move over.
Well, and not everybody, because I didn't play it. I haven't played Overwatch 2. But
I would state that there's it's still a game that's, like, if you go to Twitch and look at it's still on there. It's still in the top 10. It's still massive. The acceptable cost of losing the players that were pissed off was still not enough to make the company change their mind.
Well, we're beyond.
That's how sad it is.
We're beyond the vote with your wallet now. Like we're at a point where people are just going to buy stuff regardless. If they want it, they'll buy it, and
they'll just do it because of the sake of doing it. And then there's people that will literally go other way.
There's a few times I've considered just like saying, why am I doing this? Like obviously, like it doesn't matter if I buy the new game or not, but like. There's a certain principle to it because it's like, I don't think it's okay for you to continue to screw me, so I'm not going to continue to buy your products. But it's another thing to be like, well, I like this game, so I'll buy this one game from them and that's it. I won't buy anything else. You know what I mean? It's just, it's getting to the point where voting with your wallet no longer matters. It has to be something has to change from a systematic level before so this doesn't keep happening, because companies are getting away with things and consumers are consuming because a lot of times we don't have an option. Like that's your option.
It's not even people just do it. Like they'll be like, this is a game, and people will just buy it just because it is something.
Why do you think microtransactions work? Like they work because
it sells.
Because it sells. Exactly. If they didn't sell,
and that's why people keep doing it. Which sucks. It's the worst gaming trend of all time, and I hate it, and I wish it'd die.
Yeah.
I don't even look. There's a difference between buying a cosmetic, but like I hate mobile games. Like the principle of a mobile game bothers me to my core at this point, because I find a title, I like the concept, I get into the game, and I have to spend $70 just to play the damn thing, and then I still have to buy extra shit. Like and it bled. People saw that money. People saw how much crap casual gamers will absolutely spend, and it started bleeding into actual like console games and PC games, and it just irks the hell out of me.
And I'll 100% admit, as somebody who plays Honkai Star Rail, I 100% get that. But the difference with that game is the only time I spent money on it was to get extra gems for a thing, and I never have spent money on it again.
But see, that's how they get you. That is how they get you, because they go, oh, look at all this free shit, here's your gun. Because I tried to play that what was it, the idle game, the one where you just let it do its own shit. It was the AFK journey. I was like, okay,
that one
AFK journey. Yeah, I was like, and I was like, oh, this is super.
I think we talked
like
about this.
Super low key. You just turn the game on, and you can move if you want to, but you can literally, like, the game can play itself even if you turn the game off, because it's server based, so it's just playing.
Sure.
And you're like, wow, this is a thing. And then you fall into the fucking hole of, oh, you're out of energy for the day, and the next time you'll be able to play this game is in 24 hours. But man, if you can just play for 5 more minutes, look at this thing you get. And at first, it's innocent because it'll be like, for 25 cents, you can get an extra hour worth of playtime and do that thing. But then the next time you buy it, it's $1. And then the next time you buy it, it's $5. And then it's like gambling. And the thing is that people just go for it. And then you get these people that have been playing for like 700 hours. And you're like, dude, I just want to see what you've spent. And it's hundreds upon hundreds of dollars for a game that took them a quarter of that cost to make, because 90% of it doesn't make sense anyway.
Yeah.
It's money farms. Mm-hmm. And God damn it, Genshin Impact was the beginning of the end for me with that shit, because they knew that the gacha system is the way to make money. And everyone has copied it.
Until Firefly came out, I hadn't spent any money on Honkai Star Rail. I got it with all the free stuff just by doing the dailies. And the only thing I ever bought was to get a few extra gems every day, excuse me. And I finally got her like hours before the banner was being shut down. So, but like, I didn't need her. I could have used some of the free-to-play characters. So that's the thing about Honkai Star Rail. You can play through the game. You'll have an easier time if you use the premium characters, but if you just play free-to-play, one, they give you stuff if you do the dailies every day, so you can get the premium characters without paying a cent. Or two, if you just don't care about the premium characters and you just want to play the game with the free-to-play stuff that they give you, you can still get through the game just fine. It doesn't affect the story. If you want to do extra stuff, that's when it starts. You start having to pay for things, or start having to look at like making like the best team comps and stuff like that. But if you just want to play the story, which is the main reason I play the game, you don't got to pay a cent. You don't have to go for any of the characters. The base game characters they give you, the free-to-play ones, you can get through the game without having to, with just those characters. And so that's the thing. That's why I think I give it such, that's why I don't harp on it nearly as much, because yes, it is. But like, if you want to spend money on the game, you got to go through menu to get to the shit to pay money. Like, they don't make it obvious. So, obviously they are making money because people do spend that money on the game. But I only spent money one time, and it was because I really wanted this one character. And in all honesty, the characters get rebannered like 6 months later. I could have just been patient, but I was like, damn it, I want this character. Yeah. Just get it this one time. And I'm not somebody who spends money on microtransactions that often. I'm like, okay, this one time I'll do this so I can get this character. That's it. That's all I ever did. And I never,
And like the guy at the poker table, this one time is how they get you.
That is true.
After that, it turns into something else, which turns into something else.
And that is fair, but I have never spent more money. I don't have a gambling addiction. That's the biggest thing. So, these games prey on those people. Helps. I mean, dude, you've seen what I look like IRL. I definitely have an addictive personality, and it's all about food. But I have lost weight, so I'll say that much.
Is this game still open?
What game?
Well, okay, so one of the things that I have a big problem with gacha games is having to play as established characters. Like, I know that's a very stupid thing to have, but I love a game that lets you kind of insert yourself into the story, which is weird because Genshin Impact reminds me a lot of the Tales of series, if you've ever played those.
It reminds me of Breath of the Wild.
It's just like a lot of games remind me. Well, yeah, because that was the big comparison Genshin had, was like how it worked. But like, it reminds me of like the character development, and the side characters remind me. So it's like the environment of Breath of the Wild, but with like the character development of a Tales game. Because the idea is that you have a pre-established set of characters that have these intermingling stories and do stuff, and that's the thing. And I appreciate that. But there is a gacha game that had come out forever ago, and you might have heard this one. It's called Tower of Fantasy.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember when that one dropped? Okay, so I hate the idea. I've established this. No disrespect to anybody that loves those games. I just don't like gacha games. I've made that very clear. But this is one of them. And a buddy of mine was playing it, and he's like, it's okay. And I was like, you know what? For the sake of convenience of just saying that I tried it so that I could say that I've tried one and then can justify my hate, I'll try playing it. And I did. And I played it for a little bit. And it's cool because it lets you create your own character. You develop your own character that coincides with these characters that you unlock through gacha. So your partners are all gacha characters, right? Just similar to Genshin. Like, that's how you get these characters. That's how you get these swap-in characters to do stuff. But you yourself is a created character that you made. And it looks very similar to Phantasy Star Online.
Interesting.
So, it failed. Like, at one point, genuinely, they talked about shutting the game down. When was this review put through? Like, I'm looking at this stuff, and it's like, there's so much stuff. I guess
around.
maybe they got so it looks like it is now, but like no kidding, like there's a Twitter page that says the official servers are shutting down May 20th. Like at one point it either got bought or something happened and maybe they saved it, but like it failed. No one was playing it in the grand scheme of things because nobody wanted to play a created character. They wanted to play characters that were attractive and that you could just play as. And it's such a weird thing that that's all it takes. Sometimes it's just, do you have an attractive character that you can play as? Sold.
Do you know what's the funniest thing about all of this? The gacha game that I play, the digital only gacha game that I play, Honkai Star Rail, is getting a physical release on PS5.
That's interesting. It's
like they're doing it as a collector's edition. Like you get the game on disc, and then you get like some goodies for getting the collector's edition. But I just think it's hilarious that this game, this gacha game, this digital gacha game that you would think would never ever be going to physical because the only reason it's playing on phones and some computers and tablets and shit is coming. It's on the PS5 already, but a physical release of it's coming to the PS5. And part of me wants to get it so I can just have a physical copy of Honkai Star Rail, because why not?
That's so interesting. It's and it kills me. Also, I just want to point out, I just saw that apparently Tower Fantasy had an Evangelion crossover.
Yes, they did.
Okay, so that's a thing. Cool.
And so
did
Nikkei.
Yeah, and I saw something else that was like Chainsaw Man and Spy Family did a crossover in another game. Also, Spy Family did a crossover with Street Fighter, which was so interesting.
So you need to watch that.
So there's so much going on. There's the crossovers for days for the shit that doesn't make any sense to me. Like whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just what a weird time to be alive for games. It's such a it's like living like we're living in such an interesting point where crossovers and like physical appearance and it's just what a weird time. You know, like there's so much shit they're throwing at you just hoping to see what sticks. And then the moment someone starts making money, everyone starts doing it. And then they go, what is that meme where it's like a bunch of dudes are wearing lemons on their head and everybody's laughing and having a good time, and then it just a guy that says big company comes up wearing the lemon on their head and everyone starts taking their lemons off, and then it's just four dudes that say big company wearing the lemons and having a good time and no one else is doing it.
What the fuck is this meme? What the hell are you talking
because the
about?
idea is that it's the companies kill trends. You know, like everybody has this meme or they have a joke.
I mean, have
you
seen an advertisement? Advertisements are usually like years behind the actual.
Oh my god,
like,
I'm shitting you not. When I went to buy a car, one of the pamphlets said "very mindful, very demure" on the pamphlet, and I was like, "Ew!" Like I was physically repulsed by the fact that meme is everywhere, and it bothers me. I'll point out that 90% of it's just because kids are running the social media and advertising accounts for most of the shit now, because like we all grew up and got real jobs. So now you have a 22-year-old that's in charge of some major company's marketing, but it's just what a time. We live in such a weird existence.
Yeah. Well, the end of the day, the real crux of all of this is that there needs to be some shaking up in the industry for the consumer side of things, and it feels like that is happening, because even if this doesn't become, nothing comes of this. This won't go away. Just like all the bills to try to limit the internet won't go away. We just had to defeat another one. Like,
yep, I saw that one.
Like, remember like when like SOPA was a thing 14 fucking years ago? Like, and we were making videos about that. Like, I was making videos about that, trying to stop, trying to make it so that, tell people, we need to protect the internet. That will never go away. We will have to fight this fight forever. And if we have to fight the fight to get gaming to change, then that's a fight I'm willing to fight, because it's something I care about. And, I would hate to do a review of a game, which has already happened, where I reviewed a game and then people can't play it anymore. So it sucks. And it's one of those things where like the only way you can experience that game now is watching somebody else who happened to record footage of it, instead of there being an option. So game preservation like needs a louder voice, and until my dying breath, I will fight for game preservation to become something that's easily accessible, because as it is right now, the only way to preserve games is legally dubious. So until we get to the point where it's not, you know, I'm still gonna talk about this shit. I don't care.
It's weird. It's hard to get excited for a lot of stuff when it comes to stuff like this because it's such a niche problem to have, right? Because there's people that don't even play games. There's people that don't care, right? If you're like, I want the original Crash Bandicoot to be in a museum somewhere because it was a huge game for the PlayStation because it pushed the graphical, and there's people that are like, bro, there are literally starving children all across the world. Why do I care? But the thing is like, it's important to us. It is important to us. Why does one importance trump another importance on the individual level?
So
you can care about both things.
It's funny you mentioned museums. You want to quickly talk about the Nintendo Museum?
I'm going to be honest. I'm coming into that one blind. I will go.
So Nintendo did a Nintendo Museum Direct. They have a museum that's opening in October, and it lists every era of product they've made, not just video games, all products they've made. They even have working rooms for some of their older games, like the light gun games that were in arcades and stuff. Because, like, I don't know if you how far into Nintendo's history you know, but they used to take abandoned bowling alleys and turn them into essentially Duck Hunt places. Back when Duck Hunt was not an NES game, it was a game that you played with a gun and you shot moving targets.
Yeah. Like, also, I just want to point out, I love this building. This building is phenomenal.
Right? It looks awesome.
I'm looking at the this is so cool.
My brother's a little upset that they brought this out after he already visited Japan.
Dude, this is so neat because, like, granted, I wouldn't be able to read shit here, but like, I understand it's a big gray building.
They have stuff in English and other languages. You understand the
importance of that colors. It's just so cool.
Yeah, they have stuff.
I love this aesthetic.
They have stuff in English and other languages too. It's not just all in Japanese. So
they have the Virtual Boy.
Like, they knew people would internationally would want to see this. So they've got several different rooms for several of their different games and eras, which I think is really cool. The main thing that I think is really cool about this is they're not just focusing on video games. They're focusing on the entire history, because Nintendo existed for like 70 plus years before they ever made a video game. Like, people forget that.
They were technically like a card game.
They're over they're over 150 years old as a company. Like, it's a long-standing company.
Did you see the cafe?
Yes, I did.
Did you see that it states that there are 270,000 combinations of food you can get?
Yes, I did.
What?
Yeah, it's amazing. So, this was not like something expected. It's just something that I thought like that'd be kind of neat to check out. And so I checked out the Direct, and I'm like, this actually looks really cool. Like, Nintendo, first off, good on Nintendo trying to make their own museum, taking some kind of step for preservation, at least having something so people can.
So they're doing this so that people will shut up about it. They're like, all right, we did it ourselves. Stop asking.
But I will say it only contains a portion of things. Yeah, they've got some third-party games, but some people have already pointed out the condition of some of their games, like their Famicom games and stuff, are in like really poor condition, so they must have just pulled it out of somewhere when there are collectors who have better condition copies of some of their games.
But I mean, they were just buying locally. They weren't going in. They weren't sourcing any of this shit. All right, what do we got?
Or they stored some of their stuff in a bad place, and that's why the condition of some of them.
Or they're knockoffs. They're actually not even official copies. They're like,
could you?
They had like bootleg Chinese grade crap that they just bought so they could put it in there.
Could you fucking imagine if they put bootlegs in there? That'd be hilarious.
And then the only people allowed to steal from us is us. Like, that's.
Yeah, but I mean, it's cool. Like, it's a museum. Like you know, the Indiana Jones joke, like, it belongs in a museum. Well, they actually fucking put some of their stuff in a museum. They took them out of the archives or wherever the fuck they had them stored and actually made a museum out of it, and I think that's cool. Yes, it is something that they can make a profit off of. I understand that, but that's the whole point of saying, like, make this shit available. People will buy it again. People will buy Super Mario Brothers for the 400th time if it means they can play it on the most modern system. And they will do that. Nintendo will sell you that game 400 times. But at the end of the day, like, this is a neat thing. I think this is cool. When I go to Japan, I'm definitely going to take a look at this if I can get in, because apparently they often have to do this in Japan. When there's too much interest, they have to do lotteries for people to get in. So you have to do a daily lottery, and if you don't pass the lottery thing, you don't get to go in. Like,
yeah, and that's a weird thing, because I've seen a lot of people gripe about the lottery system, because it's like you don't get to choose the day or the time that you go. You just won a ticket, so you better hope that you can go.
Here's the thing I'll say. Compared to like people like because they do it for concerts and stuff like that, compared to like people to scalping, I think I would prefer to take that because at least I have a chance to get it for the price it costs.
Right. It's a weird thing to be in because like in the United States, at least, there is no such thing as guaranteed time off if you request it. So if we did like a lottery system here, it'd be like, hey, I got these 200 because you're still paying for them. You just won the right to buy the ticket. So it's like, cool. I won the right to see a concert on Thursday. Well, I guess I'm going to have to forfeit it because my job's sure as hell not letting me go on Thursday.
So just real quick, I don't normally do this for the podcast, but thank you, VRTuber, for rating us with a party of 6.
Hey.
This is the Hunter Base podcast. Normally, I do regular streams on Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays, but this podcast is something we do live where me and my pal here talk about stuff, and we just finished talking about game preservation stuff, and I think we're ready. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to move on to what the hell we're doing. So, Mr. Up here. Please tell me what you got planned.
Well, so I know that we don't typically do this. Am I allowed to give a specific shout out to someone?
Of course.
Okay, I would like you, if it's not too much to ask, if you have the resources to. I don't want you to pull them up on screen or anything crazy. I just want you to see the growth this man has had. I'm going to shout out my brother, Seraph1337.
Okay.
I'll spell it in the chat so that people can see it. I'm not going to put the Twitch link because I'm not going to link somebody else, but I just want to spell his name so people can see it. That is his name. If you get a chance, Zero, take a look at how much this man has grown in 2 months.
Has he only been streaming for 2 months?
Only for about 2 months.
Okay. Well, I'll have to take a look. I'll give him a shout out here in a bit once I have the ability to.
I'll just tell you what his growth is. Like, it's just impressive to see because like he streamed here and there occasionally, but like solidly for 2 months. He's at 1.5 thousand followers.
Jesus, he's almost up to me in like 2 months.
Yeah, 1.5. He's got an average of more that like he's so close to partner, it's scary. And
Jesus,
I don't necessarily agree with his method because it's not that he's doing anything bad. He just knows his audience really well and he plays one game. Just that one.
I mean, if you know your audience.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Is like I'm so proud of him because, and I'm not kidding you, Zero, he's doing this on like garbage. Like his system is not good. He's using like a phone webcam. Like it's just, but people like him and I'm proud of him for that. So I'm shouting him out because that's a big deal and I've been trying to support him. He just streams at like 1:30 in the morning and I just can't do that. So shout out to my brother. Good job for him. I'm really excited that he's doing that.
There's gonna have to be a time when I'm not available to do the podcast. You're just gonna have to have him on as a guest.
Yeah, no, he would be an interesting person. He is like me, but also wildly different. So, but Connor is, I love that man to death. But you'll just have to learn him. But I mean, again, if you've seen my streams in the past, he's come on there a few times. He is a genius. He is witty, and he's way more attractive than I am. So that's crazy. So, so he's just more of a person that you would want to look at. But on my own self, outside of trying to support him and stuff, I have been doing music. I've basically all but forfeited my time on the internet, I guess, because all I've been doing is supporting my music channel. I had to take a really long hiatus off there because I hadn't figured out a way to do music in this location, but now I've kind of figured it out and I've doubled down on it. I have officially, I think, almost 70 videos on my YouTube channel for covers, which is pretty good for me. I'm just under 300.
Can you say you're not producing
subscribers
like
on there?
The instruments? Like you're...
Yeah, no, I have a way of getting instrumentals for songs. So I do only vocals, but I pride myself that there are no backing vocals. Everything you hear that says words is me. 100%. I don't care if I have to do some craziness to get that done.
I might ask you because there's like, I've wanted to do, I've been wanting to get back into doing covers. And I want to like, you and I should talk about that off stream because I would like, there is a particular song I would like to do.
If it exists and I can get it, because there's a software I use that helps me strip vocals from things if I need to, because some people just don't make songs. But they also will allow you to separate it by track. So if you were like, I would like to do a guitar cover, but I can't find a way to, I can remove the guitar from the song and let you like play. So there's a lot you can do for practice purposes and stuff. And it's all like, it's not like anyone in the space, because it's a guy I patron through that I'm using his software. Specifically, we're not trying to do anything illegal. We're not taking the music. We're not taking credit for it. We're just using the same thing. It's like singing over the track, right? Same thing karaoke does. So that's all we're doing. We just want, I personally just want more production quality, because if I'm going to release something out there, I don't want it to sound like somebody recorded me drunk at a bar. So that's what I've been doing. I've been putting these tracks out as best I can. I'm hoping someday, eventually, a major studio hears me and takes pity on me and tells me to stop, so that I know to stop. So with that specifically, that's all I've been doing. If you want to check it out, it's just my channel, Jacob Murphy. It's Murphy Music. Yes. Yes, I can. I try not to do that.
No, do it. I'm giving you permission.
Just
type the whole YouTube URL, whatever, man.
Thank you.
There is a specific song I do want to do that doesn't have a karaoke version yet, and I also need a second person to like sing it. So I'll talk to you about that off stream.
That's me. I think I've been having this thing where I've been remastering old tracks that I knew were bad. So I'm like re-editing and changing. So that's been my thing. I just did a Seether cover re-release. So
you're the guy to come to if I want to do a cover. Got it.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you love cover music, I'm your boy, for the most part.
Sounds good to me. For my
what about you, my good friend?
Yeah, for my camp, as most of you know, I have a secret project I'm working on. Like I said earlier, I'm getting over being sick. I forgot to mention that. I was really sick Thursday and Friday this week, and I'd say I'm probably about 80 to 90% better, but I still have coughed a few times, so apologies for that. Yeah, I'm going to be going on vacation next week, so streams are going to be thin. But with these projects coming out, I'm really excited about them. Got a Halloween project coming as well in October. I just need to sit down and work on it, but I can't work on it till October because I need to focus on this other project. And then for Halloween time specifically, I should, don't quote me, but I should have my new model available as well. Some of you might have noticed that I switched to using my PNG of the dragon version of my character. If you've been watching my streams, you've seen this a couple times. I mostly did it because I didn't want to turn the lights on tonight because I'm still recovering from a cold, and I didn't want to get my phone contraption out and use my other model. But yes, there will be a full model of this coming soon, and it's supposed to be the debut. Supposed to be Halloween, but we'll see. The model maker is working hard on it, so hopefully that'll come out soon. And I'm sure there will be goals again because there are some games that people want me to play that I don't want to play, but if they throw money at it, I might change my mind. So, but yeah, no, that's what's in my camp. I have new videos coming out, obviously. For the Let's Plays, for Power Plays, I'm finally getting through the stuff that I recorded during summer when my brother was down. So expect some new videos for the next few weeks that we recorded during the summer. Backlog is not super big, but it's big enough that I have enough content to post for the next couple of months. So, and because I've been focusing on the main project, that secret project, I haven't had time to record my solo Let's Play. So I've just been posting a lot of like group ones that I've been able to easily edit. I actually have the next 2 weeks worth of videos ready because I knew I was going on vacation. So those will be coming out. For anybody who misses a playthrough of a game we used to play all the time, a new playthrough is going up, so that's coming soon. But other than that, that's all I really got.
I was going to ask before we wrap up.
Sure.
Hey, did you see that Jackbox is finally creating game modes for how we've been playing it anyway?
Yes, yeah, they're making an adult one.
Like as if we weren't already doing that.
I mean, LTN wants to do a collab of that. That's the VTuber Dream.
It would be so funny. Do you remember the joy that we used to have in those games where it just got so unhinged? So unhinged. We had so many people playing that game at one point.
There are highlights on my channel of things that you have said, and I'm like, I can't believe you said that.
There's some on my too. To this day, I can't repeat it, but my brother came up with this one that I actually, if not a plug, there's merch of it because I laughed so hard at how it existed. I love that game because it's pure unadulterated, just chaotic, creative freedom. I love it. Thank you, Jackbox. Someday. The
Lou Jackbox pack is coming out soon, and
I'm excited.
We're all ready for it. But you know. I got to wrap things up because speaking of that project, I got to work on a few things before I go to bed for that project. So we're going to have to wrap this up. Guys, thank you all for stopping by. And if you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe, like, all that stuff. If if you want to see this video, the VOD of this early, you're going to have to follow on Patreon. Patrons get early access, as well as the extra podcast that we're not going to do tonight, but we have done a couple episodes called the Hunter Based Undernet. So if you want to get access to that, you got to go over to Patreon and check that out. It's always a pleasure, my dude. Thanks for coming by again.
Absolutely.
Special announcement. The next episode is episode 50, and I have a very special guest who will be joining us for that. I'm not going to say who it is yet, but if you're a fan of the podcast, you might know who it is. So don't say any guesses. I don't want to spoil it. But yeah, so you son of a bitch. But yeah, no. Episode 50 is going to be a big one, and I'm excited to do it. So, but anyways, guys, that's going to be it for us for now. We'll hope to see you on the next podcast or whatever we do. You can follow our socials. He's Mr. Up Here everywhere. I'm Zeromaster basically everywhere. You can find us there. And thanks again for coming out to this episode of the podcast, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care and have a good one. You're not going to say anything? You're not going to say goodbye to everybody?
Oh, no, I thought I said it. I just think my auto filter said no.